The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, fold enclosures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au. Welcome to the KRGS podcast. I'm your host, Drew Blackman. The aim of our podcast is to talk to cool people with cool stories, whether it be our suppliers, customers, staff, other business owners, or people from different walks of life, and get to know them a little bit better. If you are interested in coming on, drop us a line or email, or connect with us on Facebook, and we can have a chat to see what we can do. Today's guest is Mr. Sam Aquilina from Think National Shopfitting. Being in the shopfitting industry for over 30 years, Sam has seen quite a bit. His company specialises in the fit-out and design of pharmacies and medical centres Australia-wide, combining an overall package of advisory, design, shop fit and ongoing maintenance. In fact, back in 2007, Sam was KRGS's first customer, where we installed a fold enclosure at Castle Hill Homemakers Centre. Away from shop fitting, Sam enjoys putting his boat in the water and supporting his beloved Cronulla Sharks in the Rugby League. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Sam Aquilina. Welcome, Sam, to the podcast. Thank you for coming along today.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Privileged.
As I said in the opening, 40 years in the shop fitting industry. You must have started when you were about 3 or 4 years of age.
It feels like earlier than that. I think I was in the womb working it all out, but yeah, it's been a while.
Mate, what is the Sam Aquilina story?
Well, in a nutshell, basically, you know, I'm the child of Maltese migrants. Their ethos in life is to get your hands dirty, work hard, not so much concentrating on the educational side of things. They're more of a, I want to mop the floors, but I'm not going to use the mop. I'm going to use my hands and knees and a rag. And of course, we grew up with that sort of ethos, you know. You know, grew up in the Shire, basically. Great Cronulla Shark supporter, saw the very first game at Sutherland Oval. And of course, 2016 grand final, that was very important to me.
Of course, how could you forget that?
Oh, it's hard to forget. Moved to Perth in the 80s. Lived there for about 18 years. Came back to Sydney in 2000. It's mainly to do with a business that I had, and had a warehouse out here that I had to promote. 3 grown children, 3 adult children, and a wife and 2 dogs. That's me in a nutshell.
Very nice. I have actually met your 2 dogs. They are part of the office there, security, 2 terrorising.
Yeah, miniature Dachshunds.
Yes, they'll lick you to death before you can get in the door.
Yeah, well, a prerequisite to actually work for us and with us is that, do you like dogs? If it's a no, it's a see you later.
It's a tough gig.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, mate, 40 years in the industry. How did you start in the shop fitting industry?
Well, look, way back in the day, I did pretty well at school. Back in the day, my parents were keen for me to go out and earn a living. As Maltese migrants, traditionally, the harder you work, the more money you earn, apparently. And yeah, and it was sort of like, get out there and work. And as a teenager, having my own money, you know, had its attraction, really, you know. I thought I was going to be a chef initially. I worked on that for about 6 months, and it's working the weekends, you know, hot, busy kitchen, working the weekends. All my mates were out having fun, and I thought, nah, this is not for me.
Not for you.
So I took on carpentry and joinery, and I started working with a shop fitting company, and that's the history from there on was in shop fitting, and of course there was more night work in that and out of hours work than the chef industry, and I didn't realise that at the time, but as things progressed, obviously that's what happened. After being a chef, I still wouldn't mind being a chef, actually, come to think of it, but on the side I think I'll just keep that for the moment. You know, I completed the carpentry joinery course at Gymea TAFE, as we do, and during the day, a carpenter and joiner was actually the basis of a shop fitter in those days. Things have changed.
Yes.
They've got shop fitting courses which are specific, but back in those days it was just a carpenter and joiner who could build a house or, you know, multi-storey building or simple joinery work, you know. So I went down that track. I also went on after my 5 years apprenticeship with Dan Robe Interiors. I did further course, did the Clerk of Works course which is basically what they call the building course now. That's a 3-year diploma course at TAFE again. While I was there, one of my mates who I'd known for many years, he was actually doing the course as well, and we decided to go out on our own and went straight into building houses, framing and roofing, second fixing, that sort of thing. Now, that only lasted about 8-9 months, and we got a bit of a story in that one, and probably was the turning point of building houses. It wasn't for me. When you put frames together, you basically tap them together, and then you, after you level things up, you nail them home strong and keep them together. We were putting our last frame up in this house, and we spent probably 2 or 3 days putting frames up in this house. And my mate missed a step on the joist, and of course we'd fallen over. Didn't hurt ourselves, apart from our egos. It wasn't funny at the time. The frame hit one of the frames, which hit another frame, which hit another frame, and the whole damn house came down like a pack
It was like
of dominoes.
yes.
It was. We just sat there and laughed and laughed and laughed, and then cried.
And cried, yes.
Because we had to do it all again.
Start again.
Yeah. So, I hopped into the shop fitting. I actually went off on my own again, and actually it was on my own for myself. My first company, and it was called Aquilina Kitchens and Bathrooms.
Okay.
We also did some shop fitting work, but it was predominantly working in someone's home, their castle, building kitchens and bathrooms and fit outs, all that sort of thing. So I learned a bit from that, because dealing with someone's kingdom, their home, is difficult, because if you do something wrong or half wrong, they're onto you basically.
Mr. and Mrs. Jones.
Absolutely, absolutely. Driven by the lady of the house usually.
Yes.
And then I decided to get out of that. Had a bit of a bad experience. I actually learned a lot from that, though. When you come out into business and you're only a young whippersnapper, you don't really see and understand what happens in the business world. And of course, there's builders that take advantage of you and customers that can take advantage of you. And so I learnt a lot from that process.
Yes.
So I decided to get back into the shop fitting industry specific, and I job as a setter out for a well-known company called Odlin International. And it was there that I learnt so much about the shop fitting industry in real terms. Okay. I've got to say, Jim Odlin brought to Australia something that most shop fitters hadn't seen in Australia, and that was a little bit of professionalism to the industry. And I learnt to set out on paper, basically. So we would set out, it wouldn't be on a stick, where you'd mark out and you'd get your cutting list from this markup. It was all on paper, so it was a big technical drawing thing. So basically you're an architect, detailed drawing. These days, of course, it's all done on computer, which is the same theory, but not quite, because we would do things in full scale, so it was to the millimetre. It was absolutely perfect. I learnt systems, purchasing, systems that were specific to shop fitting.
Shop fitting.
And that 2.5 years that I spent with the Odlin International, I also went into site. I was like leading site jobs, leading hand on site jobs, and supervising and project managing, estimating. So I was really lucky, because Jim took a liking to me and sort of gave me those opportunities where I saw every part of the business. Yes. Except for the sales part. That was more Jim's and others at the time. After spending 2.5 years there, I saw an ad in the paper, actually, and this was just after Australia 2 won the America's Cup.
82, 83 or something like that, I think.
I think it was 82, 83, yeah.
Around about there.
And I saw an ad for house and land in Perth for like $30,000. Now, even then, that was dirt cheap.
Yes.
And we're talking on the water, basically. And I said, this can't possibly be. So I investigated, and I decided I would go to Perth and have a look around, which I did, loved it. And at the same time, I applied for a job while I was over there got the job and started working with a company called Associated Shopfitters, which is a well-renowned shop fitting company over there. They used to have, before I started, somewhere between 100 and 130, 140 people working for them at one stage.
And this is early 80s?
This is early 80s. Oh, they didn't have those numbers then. It was probably down to about 80 or 90.
Wow, still a fair size.
Yeah, absolutely. But every shop fitter in Western Australia happened to be an apprentice and had gone through their system. So I spent about 18 months with them, and they're still good mates as well. I learned a lot on how things worked over there. And what I found out with WA was that it was way behind. WA stands for wait a while, and it really means, it really happens. Like you order something like carpet, for example, and it would take, they'd say it would take 10 days to get there. So here in New South Wales and on the eastern border, you could get it the next day. Back then, not quite so much these days. But it never took 10 days, because when it was 10 days up, you find out that, oh, sorry, mate, your carpet, we actually sold that to someone on the eastern states, and you're going to have to wait another month for it. So that was the sort of scenario in WA.
And you're trying to open up a shop to get it trading, and the customers paying rent, you're waiting on carpet.
Oh, it was very exciting.
Yeah.
Roller shutters were easy to get.
Yes.
But they weren't roller shutters then, were they? They were mainly roller doors.
Doors, yes.
Or grills, way back in the day, and you guys know a lot about that. So 18 months with Associated. Then I moved on to another company called Lee's Shopfitting, and they concentrated on pharmacies and news agencies. Hence my affiliation and love for the pharmacy, would you believe? Yes. Or pharmacy installations. It was run by a banker, and that rhymes with many things, but he didn't have much regard for shop fitters, even though that was the industry that he was in. He bought a shop fitting company, thought he'd make money. But what he was really good at was marketing.
Right, okay.
And knowing how to sell and into a niche market. And that's where I learnt a lot of what I have today, the beginnings of understanding how do you sell a job.
Yes.
What sells a job. It's not just, we can make something. Anyone can do that. It's getting to that stage to make it. And all the behind-the-scenes things that make it real and make it happen, that people don't normally see, and shop fitters don't normally do.
Yes.
I learned a lot from him, and I became general manager of that company. He was there for about 3.5 years. So at the same time, we started up a retail business in what is now a Westfield shopping centre at Whitford City.
Yes.
And we had that for a few years, and my wife was into fashion, and we started up a children's boutique. So I was learning about retail.
The other side of it.
And its challenges. So all these combined things that I've learnt over the years, I mean, I just didn't have the ability. I learnt from experienced people and trying things out for myself. Now, when you do that, trying things out for yourself, it's what I call the school of hard knocks.
Yes.
Because me being of Mediterranean extraction, don't listen to people. And I've learnt to listen, but only recently, but it's taken me 40 years to get there,
Yes.
So using all these experiences, moved on to another company called Focus Shop Fitters, which was the shop fitting division, using all my knowledge that I had learnt in the eastern states and, about marketing and all that sort of thing. And we actually grew the company to be the biggest in WA. In this time, I became a partner as well. Okay. So because I obviously loved what I did, and I did well for the company, and I became the partner. There was one day I actually went out into the factory, and there were these faces that I just didn't know, and lo and behold, that was the day that we said, if we know our business. And we had about 98 people at that time, a real machine.
Yes, certainly.
So, in building up and helping, being an integral part in building that business, they were in the heydays. The late 80s, early 90s was really good for shop fitting. Retailers were making a lot of money. shop fitters were making a lot of money, and it was easy money.
Was that the sort of the boom time over there in Perth as well?
Absolutely. Well, sorry, it was the boom time for retail and business.
Yes.
But the domestic side of it and the resource side of it came a little bit later, right? And that was more in the late 90s to early 2000s when all the resource, the resource industry became a major
certainly.
part, minerals, that sort of thing. I left after about 10 years and reluctantly in one hand, but really excited in another. I was investigating a modular shop fitting system from Italy.
Yes.
And which was called KM, and I invited some partners. In fact, the people that owned KM were one of the partners, so we could actually say we manufactured. And I took that on and basically started from scratch.
Okay.
Sitting in a warehouse where the stock hadn't arrived. We were just beginning. We hadn't even built the office yet, and I was sitting on. Back then there were yellow pages.
Yes.
There was the business one, and then there was the domestic.
Domestic.
I put those together, and they were high enough for a seat for me, and I just had a notepad.
Yes.
And I thought, what the hell? Oh, and a phone. What the hell? How am I going to kick this off? Even though I had in my head what to do. And there's another area that I learned a lot from, because the way I was told or how it's sold in Europe is different. They didn't understand our market, but they were telling us how to do it.
How to do it, yes.
And it just didn't work. And it was we go to the shop fitters to sell them shelves. That's what they do in Europe, and in the States as well. Because shop fitters over in the UK don't make their own shelves.
Right.
Back then in the 80s and 90s, a shop fitter here makes their own shelves because that's how they earn money. They make it out of melamine and not so much metal. And so we tried to sell like that to the shop fitters. It just didn't work. To the architects, it didn't work. Then we realised it had to be sold directly to the retailer, who would then tell the shop fitter, this is what I want.
This is what we're using.
Yeah, it's a bit like doors. We as you know, we use KRGS. We think their product's excellent, and it's very well priced, and the service is second to none. We sold KM to the retailers, and the best retailers, the most suitable retailers were actually pharmacists or pharmacies. Yes. And that's what we targeted, and hence that's where it grew into a business where the brands would say we want to use KM. One of the first brands was actually Amcal. From there, I had a bit of we'll call it a boardroom biff. And even though I was a managing director and I founded the company, I actually had to leave the company.
Right.
Now, that was a bit of a dark age for me. It went on for about a few years, and I was quite unsettled with all that and disgruntled. Look, it happened. But that's something I learned again too, because what I wasn't good at was watching my back.
Yes.
And a lot of that happens. It's not all good. There's a lot of bad things that can affect your life, and there's a lot of good things too. But what I learnt from that was that you've got to watch what other people are doing around you. I get so dedicated and into what I'm doing that I forget what's happening on the outside.
Yes.
And that's something it's a lesson learned, and I take that on board now. And I'm leading up to what we do as Think National, So after a few years in doing bits and pieces, I actually worked 12 months as a project manager for Telstra, right. Looking after the rollout of their licensed Telstra stores around Australia. And that was interesting. It was the easiest job I've ever had. They had a department where they had about 12 people that really only one person needed to be there. Right. We were all getting very good money for not doing anything, really. I enjoyed that for 12 months. It was a 12-month contract. That was like a rest and getting my act together for a few things. So I got back into shop fitting, and that was in 2005.
Okay.
Yeah. And, and then, Think National came from there, really.
Excellent. So tell us about Think National. So that's your business now.
Yep.
How many employees do you have? And did it just start out focusing on pharmacies and medical centres, or were you doing everything, or was it just mainly in that area?
Okay. Well, with Think National, actually started off, there was three of us, two designers and myself. The designers had designed many pharmacies and understood the behind the scenes and how a pharmacy works and all that sort of thing. I had a reasonable idea, but not the designing. That wasn't my forte. My forte was project management, site installations, and getting anything to do with the shop fit organised, whether it be Cat 1 works all the way through to the finished product. So the three of us called it Think Australia, and then we decided to change the name to Think National, and that was about 11 or 12 years ago. The designers were based in Perth, and we had about 6 designers over there, and the construction part, or the shop fitting side, was based out of Sydney. So the aim was to create a niche market where we specialised in pharmacy and medical centres. And it was like a one-stop shop with the design and fit out. But unfortunately, we were not working as a real team as such. Yeah, and there were two distinct arms, with the design on one side, the project managers on the other side. It got to a them and us scenario.
Yes.
And it's how it develops from something small becomes big. It's infectious. So you've got one side being the design. And look, design and engineering always had issues to this day, and sales and engineering, always an issue, because sales is out to sell something cheap, basically. Design is to get something drawn up that works, but engineers look at it, or the shop fitters will look at it, that can't work. That's a never-ending story.
Never-ending battle, yes.
So when you've got two sets of people who only single-mindedly think their job, design, me in the shop fitting and the process of shop fitting, you're going to have some issues. We did. So what I did was, in the end, I ended up buying these guys out, and the best thing I've ever done. I mean, the guys were okay, but it just wasn't going to work. So what we did was retain our designers, a couple of the designers in Sydney, and we kept it under one roof. That is the best thing that was ever done. Isolate that, keep the design focused on the pharmacist's needs, what they really need, because the pharmacists don't even really know what they want. Okay, so you've got all these challenges around. And what the designers learnt from us, though, being right there, is the shop fitting side, what needed to be done. So we can look at a job before it goes out and about. We would get these things organised so when we do a detailed drawing, that it's actually absolutely a detailed drawing that can be tendered on, which reduces the variations
at the end.
At the end of a job.
We just have been interrupted, folks, by our managing director, Clayton Blackman from KRGS Doors, who does have a good radio head. He's just joined us, so welcome, Clayton.
Very important person.
So Radiohead is one that you don't show your face, is that it?
Correct. He's got a good head for radio.
From the same school as you.
Yeah, of Hard Knocks, yeah.
Is that
yes,
better?
That is better. You're back on the air, so yes.
Sorry for my lateness, Sam.
Well, mate, it's thank goodness your jobs aren't like that.
Had to go and see the doc, mate.
Yeah, I heard.
Did you get that rash cleared up?
It's all
yes,
good.
Good to hear.
It's all good
to hear. So,
that rash.
yes.
I've got to go back next Friday.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but keep the swelling. Is that what you've asked
Exactly
for?
right.
No, they're just going to paint it off.
Paint it off. Yeah.
How are you, Samuel?
I'm very well.
Good to see you, mate.
Yes, yourself. Apart from the rash.
What's going on?
Where
are we up to?
We're just talking. Sam's just telling us about how things started. So it's been very interesting so
Look at
far.
the notes. Look at the notes he's got here. What
Yeah.
about the preparation he's got?
Preparation is key.
Well,
Preparation prevents piss poor performance. You know that, Sam?
it does it, apparently.
Allegedly.
The 5 Ps or the
Yeah.
6 Ps.
This was there was no words that you shouldn't use prior to this gentleman arriving. Piss poor.
Yes.
Okay.
So you feel loosened up now.
Oh, mate, I'm loose.
Yeah.
Keep your shirt on though. will you?
So it has gone downhill now,
Yeah,
Clayton's choice.
yeah.
But that's fine. That's the type of podcast we want, mate. Relaxed, feel comfortable.
Hey, it's not a family show then?
No, we put an explicit rating up. If the kids want to listen to it, the kids listen to it. There's no
cool,
control. This
cool.
day and age, the kids actually use worse language than us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So
Where were we?
you brought the designers in-house?
Yeah, in-house, and that really worked like a charm, working in with the construction people, project managers. You know, we'd be showing them how things really should be done.
Do you feel this having those designers, Sam, helps you steer the job from go to woe?
It does in most cases, but that's changing
Yeah.
a lot because of the economic environment out there. People want more for less, and they don't want
Oh,
to
of
pay
course,
for it. So that's
of
another
course.
subject.
That's a different show.
Yeah,
That is,
absolutely.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah.
That's our Saturday morning money show.
Exactly right. How many designers you got, Sam?
Well, okay, we've actually reduced in our staff. Okay, so we had 3 designers,
Yeah.
like they were kind of permanent. We've got 1 now, and she's on maternity leave at the moment. However, in saying that, because of the way business is at the moment, it's very tight. So you've got to change with the times to
Yes.
accommodate for that. And in what we do in our business, you will know. Oh, I was talking Focus, 97 people. I was talking, other companies. We had something like 15 people doing what we're doing now.
Yeah.
With 3 of us.
Yes.
We're down
Yeah.
to 3 people. But what I'm doing is a lot of the staff that I've had, particularly in design, are actually working for me on contract now.
Yeah.
And they still understand what we do. That's the trick.
That's the key, yes.
Absolute key. I suppose the downside of that is you can't sort of flick your finger and say, I want it done now. Instead, it gets done tomorrow. But what I have got control of is dollars and
The
cents.
dollars, yeah.
Which is really
The
important.
bottom line.
And I think you've touched on having staff is one of the biggest challenges for many reasons. We all know those, we don't have to go through them. It's just hard work usually. And it could be from either side of the coin. And this way, by reducing staff, it gives you a refreshed head. Look, there's a lot of things that have changed in that area, in the resource area. Resources are always an issue. But so much of it is going overseas, particularly with design.
Yes.
And not so much the client direct contact, which you must have in design, because people like people to people still, over the internet or
Over email, over the phone, that
Absolutely,
type of thing. It
absolutely.
breaks down.
Yeah, so we still have that. Outsource, like the detailing and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
And that works really well, and it is more cost effective, which is the other good thing.
That's the key.
So going back, you said you learned a little about marketing and things like that. How does Think now advertise to get either new clients, or is it all existing clients, return clients, or is it done through knocking on doors and going in that sense?
We actually invest in the pharmacy industry. Okay, and how do we do that? Well, we support them at conferences. We support them by going to trade shows. APP, which is a very large one on the Gold Coast at Broadbeach, is massive, and we've been there for the last 7 or 8 years. And it's really good for us, and it's also good for the customer as well. So that's where we get a lot of our leads from. We also we never advertise in a magazine. Occasionally, if someone asks us to do a specific project for them, where they're looking at pharmacies and shop fitting, and they'll ask us to do a little bit of a spread, we'll do that sort of thing. But it usually relates to a conference that's coming up, and that works well. The other thing is actually working within the industry. That has been major in shop fitting generally. We would work with other shop fitters, But in our industry, in the pharmacy and medical centre, we deal a lot with, and we work in with a lot of the suppliers, like the dispensing robot. We work with those people, and they work with us. So, and it's not all about, oh, I've got a job for you, give me some money. That doesn't work. People do it, and they often say, look, if you get this job, I'll give you $1,000. Help us with this. No, it's just a matter of a lead and helping each other. It works much better. So we do that. On the social media side of things, that's fairly important. We probably don't do it as well as what we could, because that's another, well, I call it an expense, but it's not really an expense. It's actually...
it's time.
It's time.
It's time to be able to do it.
Absolutely. And what we do is LinkedIn has been phenomenal for us.
LinkedIn is for businesses. I feel that's a big key. Yeah. But then again, people say, "Oh, my customers aren't on social media." You have a look; everyone's on social. But our mum and dad, they're on Facebook. Like they're 80 years old, 75, 80 years old. They're on Facebook. So saying your customers aren't on Facebook, everyone's now on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually joined LinkedIn on its early day as well, and my thought was, right, I don't really want everyone to know what I'm doing, particularly competitors. Of course, you've got to sort of guard that to a certain degree. It catches up eventually, but and I just simply connected with pharmacists, and anything to do with pharmacy or a supplier of the pharmacy industry and all that sort of thing, and that really is what keeps us going. However, in saying that, word of mouth, you just can't beat.
Yes.
From that comes word of mouth, and I have to say that without our repeat customers, we would be nothing, because getting the new customer these days is much harder. And it's getting to a stage now where it's almost in this business, you have to change daily in how you deliver a job, how you get a job, because it changes. What we did 5 years ago, you'd think, oh, that's like ancient now. I mean, technology is moving so quick. I mean, that's been an absolute... Technology in our industry has really changed the ways and how we do things. So back in the days where you would plan print to give to people the price, you'd have to run it through one of those chemical machines. No one wore masks, but they should have at the time because it smelt. Then you'd have to get it, post it, or they'd be picked up. You'd go through all this paper, and then by the time you've done that, the plans are changed anyway. Yes. And you'd have to redo it again.
Yeah. Yes.
That was hard work. So that took up a lot of the time. Then the fax machine came in, and then you've got that machine that you'd have to photocopy the paper because it would fade after 3.5 days. And we thought that was magic because it sped up the process. And no, I think that was early 80s. Or mid-80s, actually, when that happened. Boy, I'm going back now. And then we got into computers, and we were right into that. And emails, you could get instant replies. Oh, this is going to be so easy. In fact, it made things a lot harder, I believe, because everyone expects that to happen.
Well, it's just automatic now, Sam. People say, oh, I've sent you an email. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Well,
but you only copied me in. You didn't send it to me.
Yeah. But we're all sitting around waiting for everyone to send emails.
Exactly. Yeah.
I find with technology the biggest thing we go to site, and you're probably the same, Sam. That in the past they'd have to look at the plans, and they're the big A1 printed hanging up on the clothes rack type of thing. Now they got the little laptop or the little iPad, and they're walking around site with it, going, "Yep, this is what this should look like, and this is what that should look like."
I mean, there's some great things happening. But it seems to be ahead by the time people get a grip of it.
Good work.
There's an example. That person. Person just rang up to say that
technology is working.
We can't open the shop because the roller door's not working, and
not at this time of day.
And we need someone right now.
Not at this time of day.
Okay. No, it'd be first thing in the morning usually.
Exactly.
Or at night time. Yeah. But anyway.
That was just a sound effect on cue to let you know technology's still working.
Okay. Was that my time up or something?
No.
Okay.
Our next guest is.
Yeah. So, on that, what do you attribute your success to?
Okay. This is interesting. I actually asked my wife this question the other day, and some of the things that she said really made sense. It's funny how a woman a woman behind a man sort of works it out. I think you've got one. You've got one.
Yes.
As well. We've all got that, which is really good. But one of the things is persistence. The hardest thing is when you get a knock is to go, oh, geez, that's too hard. But you just have to be persistent in what you do. You've got to have someone behind you that's supporting you as well.
Yeah, which you've got.
Oh, absolutely.
Your hard work is your key to success, Sam.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sort of looking up some notes here, trying to get the exact words my good wife, used. And I must have deleted it.
Fell on deaf ears.
Fell on deaf ears. So
that's how good it was.
Yeah, so it's persistence, and when you get knocked down, you've got to come back and not take things personally.
Yeah.
Because in our industry, ethics, I believe, has gone down into the toilet. And the reason for that, I believe, is, the reason for that is because things are tough out there financially. In the pharmacy industry, the things that have affected the pharmacy industry are the PBS issues, where about 9 years ago, a decision was made by the government to change what the PBS was in. And on your average pharmacy, they would lose, on 150 scripts per day, would lose something like $90,000 net off their yearly income. So if you were doing 1,000 scripts a day, you're talking $500,000, which is major.
Yeah.
So being able to change quickly is important in our industry, So to the success of the business has been that we've had to change quickly, and you can't do that with a big organisation.
No.
It's like a massive ship, the Titanic. To turn that around would take 3 miles before you could turn it around.
Yeah.
But if you've got a smaller company and you've got control of that company, that's another issue, particularly in what we do. Some people call it micromanagement, but I believe that it's part of that you really need. Because if you leave it in the hands of others, you don't have that control and you will have issues because they're not invested.
Yes.
Doesn't matter how much they get paid, they're not invested and they haven't got the passion that you have. Small business, to change with the times, you're kind of like in a speedboat, which you can do on a sixpence, and you can change it around quickly. But you have to have the head to do that as well. So I believe that the success is persistence, not, standing up to the knocks, coming back, and having someone behind you supporting you, and someone that when you're down in the dumps, giving you a wake-up call and say, hey, you chose this.
Yeah. Get back up.
Get back up and do it.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to do sometimes.
Away from work, mate, how do you relax?
Fishing.
Fishing?
I love my boat. I wish I could use it more, but I live pretty close to Botany Bay. The ramp's 3 minutes away. Dropping the boat in, fishing, occasionally a game of golf, rarely, not nearly enough. And would you believe something that I've really taken into, which I never thought I would, I discovered Netflix and Stan. And that's pretty interesting stuff too.
Yes.
Yeah. So I can relax there at night. And unfortunately, if you get into something really good, you're there till 2 a.m. watching it and then getting up early to go back to
episode
work.
after episode.
Oh, it's beautiful.
What's your latest Netflix or Stan show that you're on?
I'm right into these cartels.
Yeah, how good are they?
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic. I don't know if it's the death I like and the shooting and all that sort of thing, but their business...
El Chapo?
Yeah, El Chapo. That was a great one. That was a while ago. I'm watching another one now called... what's called... Queen of the South.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Yes. And that's a Mexican cartel.
Yeah.
That and another good one is it's to do with the President of the United States, and everyone died, and they had to use a backup president to run the country, and he ended up being a really good president, And what's the name of it? It'll come to me, but I haven't got it at the moment.
Excellent.
And spending much time with my dogs. Would you believe? Dogs are are all a part of my life.
You've got 2 dash hounds?
Miniature dash hounds.
Mini
please.
dash hounds, that's right.
And
Terrorised.
One of them's called Peanut.
yeah, and the other one's called Monty.
Monty.
The real name is, we changed name because they're rescue dogs. We only get rescue dogs and help them out. They're hard work because, they may have been mistreated back in their day or that sort of things. But, so it's not peanut, but it was walnut or something like that.
Walnut.
Okay.
It wasn't walnut. But anyway, it was a nut name. But we called her Monty because it just seemed to suit her, even though Monty's the boy's name.
But they're forever with you. Like you go to your office and they're at the
Oh,
office.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they're part of the family.
Well, I was saying earlier on when we have new employees, and at the interview, one of the questions is, do you like dogs?
Are you dog friendly?
And if they go, and you know what, they actually help make us decision on who we get, because usually dog people are, in my opinion, have a different type of nature.
Yes.
And because they're not, to have a dog or an animal of any description, you can't be selfish, and and sometimes they take a bit more of your time than what.
And your dogs act as security guards at your office too, at the front there when you come in.
They
bail you
do.
up.
Yeah, they've got a name in the complex for sure. Yeah.
They're known.
Yeah, they're known. Very good.
Excellent.
But it's all good, yeah.
That's good, mate. Well, to finish it off, we ask all our guests our fast 5 questions.
Ah, yes. Okay.
And the first question is, what would be your last meal?
Okay. Well, I really like angel pasta with garlic prawns and lemon.
Oh,
Nice.
sounds good.
It's
Nice.
gorgeous.
Now, going back, you mentioned before earlier that you started out as a chef. I'm going to add a question in here, so it's going to be the fast 6. What's your
I don't know about this.
what's your go-to meal from your chef days that you still cook now?
2-minute noodles.
2-minute noodles.
Can't stuff them up, eh?
Yeah, had them last night.
Well, you can actually overcook them and go for 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah, that's a problem.
Yes.
Or let it run dry, yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
But see, what you can actually do with that is add all these different things into it, like mushrooms and chicken, and all of a sudden it becomes a really good meal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Your drink of choice?
Water.
Water?
If that's not available, single malt scotch.
Your favourite holiday destination?
Okay, well, locally, I like going to Culburra.
Nice.
Great spot.
Yeah,
Great
we
spot.
we rent a place from someone we know down there quite regularly, and it's right on the water. It's just glorious, and I get to do a bit of beach fishing, and it's like 4.5 steps away, and
That's
it's
good, mate.
It's great. Yeah.
Great spot. Great
And the
part
other
of the
place,
world.
yeah, and the other place is my home country, being Malta. When I say home country, it's my parents' home country, and I'm going there in a couple of months actually.
Okay, how often do you...
Not that often. I might go once every 4 or 5 years. Yeah.
and you've still got family over there?
Yeah, mate. We Aquilinas breed like rabbits, and rabbit happens to be the one of the main foods of Malta. Yeah, there's a lot of rabbit in their food, and
And the chocolate, the Maltesers?
no, mate.
No? Oh, okay.
No, there's no connection.
No
there
connection
except
there?
for the name.
And,
Okay.
and they all drive a Falcon.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah, no. I did have one though. That's true. Yeah. Look, there's a fancy one though, and Malta's a great destination. Yeah, it's like the Greek Isles but better, in my opinion.
Very nice. Any tattoos?
Definitely no, mate. I've got too much. I'm just way too hairy.
Too hairy?
Yeah.
Yes.
The needle wouldn't get through.
Not even a Cronulla Sharks 2016 Premiership tattoo?
I thought about that, but the only patch without hair was a little part on my butt, and I need to show it. Yes. That's...
Now, Clayton's just showing us his St George Dragons tattoo, which is on his chest.
Is that your only tattoo?
Little do people know that it started out as a neck tattoo, and with age and gravity, it's now down on his chest.
Yes.
And our final question, if heaven does exist, what would God say when you arrived at the pearly gates?
Mate, here's your fishing rods, and your 2 dogs are here waiting for you.
They welcome you with open arms.
Absolutely.
Well, Sam, thank you very much for joining us on the KRGS podcast. It has been an absolute pleasure listening to your story.
Great.
And
Thanks. Appreciate it.
we'll get you on again very shortly. Thanks very much.
Great. And don't call me shortly.
Shortly. Not a worry. Thanks very much, Sam.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Sammy.
mate.
Thanks,
Cheers,
guys.
mate.
It's been a pleasure.
That wraps up our chat with Sam Aquilina from Think National Shopfitting. If you're liking the podcast, give them a rating on your preferred listening channel. Not only does it boost our show, it also boosts my ego. Again, thanks for listening, and as always, you could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. Thanks again. Till next time, cheers. The KRGS Doors Show, proudly brought to you by KRGS Doors. For all your shopfront roller shutters, roller grills, fold enclosures and bifold doors, visit www.krgsdoors.com.au.